The 1 minute manager increases productivity, profits, and your own prosperity. Wow. The 1 minute manager symbol, a 1 minute readout for a phase of modern digital watch, is indeed to remind each of us to make out of our day, to look into the faces of the people we manage, and to realize that they are our most important resources. In this brief story, we present you with a great deal of what we have learned from our studies in medicine and in the behavioral sciences about how people work best with other people. By best, we mean how people produce valuable results and feel good about themselves, the organization, and other people with whom they work. This allegory, the 1 minute managers, is simply compilation of what many wise people have taught us and what we have learned ourselves. We recognize the importance of our sources of wisdom. We also realize that the people who work with you as their manager will look to you as one of their sources of wisdom. We trust, therefore, that you will take the practical knowledge you gain from this and use it in your daily management. For, as the ancient sage Confucius advises each of us, the essence of knowledge is having it, you to use it. We hope you enjoy using what you learn from the 1 minute manager, and that as a result, you and the people you work with will enjoy healthier, happier, and more productive lives. The 1 minute manager. Once there was a bright young man who was looking for an effective manager. He wanted to work for one, he wanted to become one. His search had taken him many years to far off corners of the world. He had been in small towns and in capitals of powerful nations. He had spoken with many managers, with government administrators and military officers, construction superintendents and corporate executives, university professors and shop stewards, with the managers of shops and stores or restaurants, banks and hotels, with men and women, young and old. He had gone into every kind of office, large and small, luxurious and sparse, with windows and without. He was beginning to see the full spectrum of how people manage people, but wasn't always pleased with what he saw. He had seen many tough managers whose organizations seemed to win while their people lost. Some of their superiors thought they were good managers. Many of their subordinates thought otherwise. As the man sat in each of these tough people's offices, he asked, "What kind of a manager would you say you are?" Their answer varied only slightly. I'm an autocratic manager. I keep on top of the situation. A bottom line manager, hard nosed, profit minded, realistic. He heard the pride in their voices and their interest in results. The man also met many nice managers whose people seemed to win while the organizations lost. Some of the people who reported to them thought they were good managers. Those to whom they reported had their doubts. As the man sat and listened to these nice people, answer the same question he heard. I'm a democratic manager, participative, supportive, considerate, humanistic. He heard the pride of their voices and their interest in people, but he was disturbed. It was as though most managers in the world were primarily interested either in results or in people. The managers who were interested in results often seemed to be labeled autocratic, while the managers interested in people were often labeled democratic. The young man thought each of these managers, the tough autocrat and the nice democrat, were only partially effective. It's like being half a manager. He returned home tired and discouraged. He might have been up his research long ago, but he had one great advantage. He knew exactly what he was looking for. Effective managers, he thought, manage themselves and the people they work with so that both the organization and the people profit from their presence. The young man had looked everywhere for an effective manager, but had found only a few. The few he did find would not share their secret with him. He began to think maybe he would never find out what really made an effective manager tick. Then he began hearing marvelous stories about a special manager who lived ironically in a nearby town. He heard that people liked to work for his man and that they produced great results together. The young man wondered if the stories were really true, and if so, whether the manager would be willing to share his secrets with him. Curious, he telephoned the special manager's secretary for an appointment. The secretary put him through immediately. The young man asked this special manager When he could see him, he heard, "Any time this week is fine except Wednesday morning. You pick the time." The young man quietly chuckled because this supposedly marvelous manager sounded very strange to him. What kind of manager had that kind of time available? But the young man was fascinated. He went to see him. When the young man arrived at the manager's office, he found him standing and looking out of the window. When the young man coughed, the manager turned and smiled. He invited the young man to sit down and asked, "What can I do for you? I would like to ask you some question about how you manage people." Fire away. Well, to begin with, do you hold regularly special meetings with your subordinates? Yes, I do. Once a week on Wednesday from 9 till 11. That's why I couldn't see you then. What do you do at these meetings? I listen while my people review and analyze what they accomplished last week, the problems they had, and what still needs to be accomplished. Then we develop plans and strategies for the next week. Are the decisions made at those meetings binding you on both you and your staff? Questioned the young man. Of course they are. What would be the point of having a meeting if they weren't? Then you are a participative manager, aren't you? On the contrary, I don't believe in participating in any of the staff's decision making. Then what is the purpose of your meetings? I have already told you that. Please, young man, do not ask me to repeat myself if it is a waste of my time and yours. We are here to get results, the manager continued. The purpose of the organization is efficiency. By being organized, we are a great deal more productive. Oh, so you are aware of the need for productivity, then you are more result oriented than people oriented, the young man suggests. No, I hear that all too often. How on earth can I get result if it's not through people? I care about people and results. That goes hand in hand. Here, young man, look at this. I keep it on my desk to remind me of a practical truth. People who feel good about themselves produce good results. As a young man looked at the plague, the manager said, "Think about yourself when you work best. Is it when you feel good about yourself or when you don't?" The young man nodded as he began to see the obvious. "I get more done when I'm feeling good about myself." Of course you do, and so does everyone else. Wow. So helping people to feel good about themselves is the key to getting more done? Yes. However, remember, productivity is not just about the quantity of the work. It's also the quality. Come over here, young man. Do you see how many foreign cars there are on the road? Mm-hmm. I see more of them every day, and I suppose they are because they are more economically and last longer. The manager nodded reluctantly and said, "Exactly. So why do you think people are buying foreign cars? Because our manufacturers did not make enough cars?" Or the manager said without interrupting, "Because they did not make the quality car the public really wanted." Now that I think of it, it's a question of quality and quantity. Of course, quality is simply giving people the product or service they really want and need. The older man stood at the window, lost in his thoughts. He could remember not so long ago that Britain and America provided the technology that helped to rebuild Europe and Asia. It still amazed him that they had fallen so far behind in productivity. The young man broke the manager's concentration. "I'm reminded of an ad I saw on television. It showed the name of the foreign car, and over it came the verse, 'If you are going to take out a long-term car loan, don't buy a short-term car.'" The manager turned and said quietly, "I'm afraid that's a rather good summary." And that's the whole point. Productivity is both quantity and quality. The manager and his visitor began to walk back towards their chairs, and frankly, the best way to achieve both of these results is through people. The young man's interest increased as he sat down. He asked, "Well, you have already said that you are not a participative manager. Just how would you describe yourself?" "That's easy. I'm a 1-minute manager." "You are what?" "I'm a 1-minute manager. I call myself that because it takes a very little time for me to get very big results from people." Although the young man had spoken with many managers, he had never heard one talk like this. It was hard to believe 1-minute manager, someone who gets results without taking much time. You don't believe me, do you? You don't believe that I'm a 1 minute manager? I must admit it's hard for me even to imagine. Listen, you would better talk to my staff if you really want to know what kind of manager I am. The manager leaned over and spoke into the office intercom. His secretary, Miss Metcalfe, came in moments later and handed the young man a sheet of paper. Those are the names, positions, and the phone numbers of the 6 people who report to me. Which one should I talk to? That's your decision. Pick any name, talk to any of them or all of them. Well, I mean, who should I start with? I already told you I don't make decisions for other people. Make that decision yourself. You have asked me not once but twice to make a simple decision for you. Frankly, young man, I find that annoying. Do not ask me to repeat myself. Either pick up a name and get started or take your search for effective management elsewhere. The visitor was stunned. He felt uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, a moment of embarrassment. Silence seemed like an eternity. Then the 1 minute manager looked at the young man in the eye and said, "You want to know about managing people and admire that." He shook his visitor's hand. "If you have any question after talking to some of my people, come back and see me. I appreciate your interest and desire to learn how to manage. I would in fact like to give you a concept of the 1 minute manager as a gift. Someone gave it to me once and it's made all the difference to me. I want you to understand it fully. If you like it, you may want to become a 1 minute manager yourself someday. Thank you." He left the manager's office somewhat dumbfounded. As he passed the secretary, she said understandingly, "I can see from your dazed look that you have already experienced our 1 minute manager." The young man said very slowly but still trying to work things out, I rather think I have. Maybe I can help you. I have phoned the 6 people who report to him. 5 of them are here and they have each agreed to see you. You may be better able to understand your 1 minute manager after you have spoken with them. The young man thanked her, looked over the list and decided to talk to 3 of them, Mr. Tennant, Mr. Levy and Miss Brown. When the young man arrived at Mr. Tennant's office, he found the middle-aged man smiling at him. "Well, you have been to see an old man. He's quite a character, isn't he? He seems that way. Did he tell you about being a 1 minute manager?" "He certainly did." "It's not true, is it?" "You would better believe it is. I hardly ever see him." "You mean you never get any help from him?" "Essentially very little, although he does spend some time with me at the beginning of the new task or responsibility. That's when he does 1 minute goal setting." 1 minute goal setting? What's that?" "He told me he has a 1 minute manager, but he didn't say anything about 1 minute goal setting." That's the first part of the 3 secrets of the 1 minute management. 3 secrets? Wanting to know more? Yes, the 1 minute goal setting is the first one and the foundation for 1 minute management. You see, in most organizations, when you ask people what they do and then ask their boss, all too often you get 2 different lists. In fact, in some organization I've worked in, any relationship between what I thought my job responsibilities were and what my boss thought they were was pure coincidental. And then I would get in trouble for not doing something I didn't even think was my job. Does that ever happen here? No. It never happens here. The 1 minute manager always makes it clear what our responsibilities are and what we are being held accountable for. Just how does he do that efficiently? Once he has told me what needs to be done, or we have agreed on what needs to be done, then each goal is recorded on no more than a single page. The 1 minute manager feels that a goal and its performance standard should take no more than 250 words to express. He insists that anyone be able to read it within a minute. He keeps a copy and I keep a copy so everything is clear and so we can both periodically check the progress. Do you have these 1-page statements for every goal? Yes. Well, wouldn't there be a lot of these 1-page statements for each person? No, there really aren't. The old man believes in the 80-20 goal setting rule. That is, 80% of your really important results will come from 20% of your goals. So we only do 1-minute goal settings on that 20%. That is our key areas of responsibility, maybe 3 to 6 goals in all. Of course, in the event of the special project comes up, we set special 1 minute goal. Interesting, the young man comment. I think I understand the importance of the 1 minute goal setting. It sounds like a philosophy of no surprises. Everyone knows what is expected from the beginning. Exactly. And so is 1 minute goal setting, just understanding what your responsibilities are. No. Once you know what your job is, the manager always makes sure we know what good performance is. In other words, performance standards are clear. It shows us what he expects. How does he show you what he expects? Let me give you an example. One of my 1 minute goals was this: identify performance problems and come up with solutions which, when implemented, will turn the situation around. When I first came to work here, I spotted a problem that needed to be solved, but I didn't know what to do. So I called the 1 minute manager. When he answered the phone, I said, I find I have a problem. Before I could get another word out, he said, good, that's what you have been hired to solve. Then there was a dead silence on the other end of this phone. I didn't know what to do. The silence was deafening. I eventually stuttered out, but I don't know how to solve the problem. Terribly, one of your goals for the future is for you to identify and solve your own problems. But since you're new, come up here and we'll talk. When I got up there, he said, tell me, Turner, what's your problem? But put it in behavioral terms. Behavioral terms? What do you mean by behavioral terms? I mean, the manager explained to me that I do not want to hear about only attitudes or feelings. Tell me what is happening in observable, measurable terms. I described the problem the best I could. He said, that's good, Turnell. Now tell me that what you would like to be happening in behavioral terms. I don't know. Then don't waste my time. I just froze in amazement for a few seconds. I didn't know what to do. He mercifully broke the dead silence. If you can't tell me what you would like to be happening, you don't have a problem yet. You are just complaining. A problem exists only if there is a difference between what is actually happening and what you desire to be happening. Being a quick learner, I suddenly realized that I knew what I wanted to be happening after I told him. He asked me to talk about what may have caused the discrepancy between the actual and the desire. After that, the 1 minute manager said, Brett, what are you going to do about it? Well, I could do A, I said. If you did A, what would you want to actually happen? No. Then you have a very bad solution. What else could you do? I could do B. But if you did do B, will what you want to happen will really happen? No. Then that's also a bad solution. He said, what else can you do? I thought about it for a couple of minutes and said I could do C. But if I do C, what I want to happen won't happen. So that is a bad solution, isn't it? Right. You are starting to come around. The manager said with a smile on his face, is there anything else you could do? Maybe I could combine some of these solutions. That sounds worthwhile. In fact, if I do A this week, B next week, and C in 2 weeks, I'll have it solved. That's fantastic. Thanks so much. You solved my problem for me. He got very annoyed. I did not. You solved it yourself. I just asked you questions. You are able to ask questions. Now get out of here and start solving your own problems on your time, not mine. I knew what he had done. Of course, he had shown me how to solve problems so that I could do it on my own way in the future. Then he stood, looked me straight in the eye and said, you're good, Turnell. Remember that the next time you have a problem. I remember smiling as I left his office. Turnell leaned back in the chair and looked as if he were reliving his encounter first with the manager. 1 minute manager. So the young man began reflecting on what he had just heard. 1 minute goal setting. It's simply agree on your goals. See what good behavior looks like. Write out each of your goals on a single sheet of paper using less than 250 words. Read and reread each goal, which requires only a minute or so. Each time you do it, take a minute every once in a while out of your day to look at your performance and see whether or not your behavior matches your goal. That's it. You are a fast learner. Thank you. Feeling good about himself, but let me just jot that down. I want to remember that. After the young man wrote briefly in a small blue notebook he carried with him, he leaned forward and asked, if 1 minute goal setting is the first secret of becoming a 1 minute manager, what are the other two? Looked at his watch and said, why don't you ask Levy? You are scheduled to see him this morning too, aren't you? Yes, thank you so much for time. You're welcome. Time is one thing that I have a lot more of now. As you can probably tell, I'm becoming a 1 minute manager myself. As the young man left Turnell's office, he was struck at the simplicity of what he had heard. He thought, it certainly makes sense. After all, how can you be effective manager unless you and your people are sure of what they're being asked to do and what an efficient way to do it? The young man walked the length of the building and took the lift to the second floor. When he got to Mr. Levy's office, he was surprised to meet so young a man. Levy was probably in his late 20s and early 30s. Well, you have been to see the old man. He's quite a character, isn't he? Quite a character, I reckon he is. Did he tell you about being a 1 minute manager? He certainly did. It's not true, is it? You would better believe it is true. I hardly ever see him. You mean you never get any help from him? Essentially very little, although he does spend a fair amount of time when he is at the beginning of the task of responsibility. Yes, I know about the 1 minute goal setting. Actually, I wasn't thinking so much about 1 minute goal setting. I was referring to 1 minute praisings. 1 minute praisings, are they the second secret to become the 1 minute manager? Yes, they are, in fact. When I first started to work here, the 1 minute manager made it very clear to me that I was going to do. What was that? He said that he knew that I would be a lot easier for me to do well if I got crystal clear feedback from him on how I was doing. He said he wanted to succeed. He wanted me to be a good help to the organization and to enjoy my work. He told me that he would try, therefore, to let me know in no uncertain terms when I was doing well and when I was doing poorly. Then he cautioned me that it might not be very comfortable at first for either of us. Why? Because, as he pointed out to me, then most managers don't manage that way and people aren't used to it. Then he assured me that such feedback would be a big help to me. Can you give me an example of what you are talking about? Of course, shortly after I started to work, I noticed that after the manager had done 1 minute goal setting with me, he would stay in a close contact. What do you mean by close contact? There were two ways that he did it. First of all, he observed my activities very closely. He never seemed to be very far away. Secondly, he made me keep detailed records of my progress, which he insisted I sent to him. That's interesting. Why does he do that? At first, I thought he was spying and didn't trust me. That is until I found out from some of the people who reported to him that he was actually doing. What was that? He was trying to catch me doing something right. Catch you doing something right? Yes, we have a motto around here that says, help people reach their full potential, catch them doing something right. In most organizations, the managers spend most of the time in catching people doing what? Doing something wrong, right? Here we put the accent on the positive. We catch people doing something right. The young man made a few notes in his notebook. What happens, Mr. Levy, when the 1 minute manager catches you doing something right? That's when he gives me the 1 minute praising. What does that mean? Well, when he has seen that you have done something right, he comes over and makes contact with you. That often includes putting his hand on your shoulder or briefly touching you in a friendly way. Doesn't it bother you when he touches you? No, on the contrary, it helps me know he really cares about me and he wants me to prosper. The more consistently successful people are, higher you rise in the organization. When you make contact, is brief, but it lets me know once again that we are really in the same side. Anyway, after that, he looks you straight in the eye and tells you precisely what you did right. Then he shares with you how good he feels about what you did. I don't think I've ever heard a manager doing that. That must make you feel pretty good. It certainly does for several reasons. First of all, I get a praising as soon as I have done something right. I don't have to wait for an annual performance review, if you know what I mean. Second, since he specifies exactly what is right, I know he's sincere and familiar with what I'm doing. Third, he's consistent. Consistent, yes, he will praise you if I am performing well in the service, even if you're doing not well for him elsewhere. I know he may be annoyed about other things, but he responds to my situation not according to what's going on elsewhere for him at the time. And I really appreciate that. Doesn't all this praising have to take up a lot of manager's time? Not really. Remember, you don't have to praise someone for a very long time for them to know you notice and you care. It usually takes less than a minute, and that's why it's called 1 minute praising. Right? Is he always trying to catch you doing something fine? No, of course not. Just when you first start work here and when you begin a new project or responsibility, then he does. After you get to know the ropes, he doesn't seem to be much around. Why? Because you and he have other ways of knowing when your job performance is praiseworthy. You both can review the data and the information system, the sales figures, expenditure, production schedules, and so on. And then after a while, you begin to catch yourself doing things right and you start praising yourself. Also, you are always wondering what he might praise you again, when he might praise you again, and that seems to keep you going even when he's not around. It's uncanny. I have never worked so hard at a job in my life. That's really interesting. So 1 minute praising is the secret of becoming a 1 minute manager. It is indeed, Levy said with a gleam in his eye. He enjoyed watching someone learn the secrets of 1 minute management. As the visitor looked at the notes, he quickly reviewed that what he had learned about the 1 minute praising. Tell people right from the start that you are going to let them know how they are doing. Praise people immediately. Tell people what they did right. Be specific. Tell people how good you feel about what they did right and how it feels. Helps the organization and the other people who work there. Stop for a moment of silence and let them feel how good they feel. Encourage them to do more of the same. Shake hands or touch people in a way that makes it clear that you support their successes in organization. What's the third secret? Levy laughed at the visitor's enthusiasm, rose from his chair and said, "Why don't you ask Miss Brown? I understand you're planning to talk to her too." "Yes, I am." "Well, thanks so much for your time." "That's okay. Time is one thing. I have plenty. You see, I'm a 1 minute manager myself now." He wanted to reflect on what he was learning. He left the building and took a walk in the nearby park. He was struck again by the simplicity and the common sense of what he had heard. You can't argue with your effectiveness by catching people doing something right, especially after they know what they are to do and what good performance looks like. But do 1 minute presence really work? Does all this 1 minute management stuff really get results, bottom line results? As he walked along, his curiosity about results increased. So he returned to the 1 minute manager secretary and asked Miss McLeod to reschedule his appointment with Miss Brown for sometime next morning. "Tomorrow morning is fine." Miss Brown said to tell you to come anytime except Wednesday morning. Then she rang another extension to make the new appointment. He requested he was to see Miss Jones, an official at the head office. They have information there about all the different plans and location in the whole company. I'm sure you'll find whatever you are looking for. After lunch, the young man went to his appointment at the head office. There he met Miss Jones, a competent young woman in the early 40s. Getting down to business, the young man asked, "Could you please tell me which of all your operation in the country is the most efficient and effective? I want to compare it with the so-called 1 minute managers." A moment later, he laughed as he heard Miss Jones say, "Well, you won't have to look very far because it is the 1 minute manager. He's quite a character, isn't he? His operation is the most efficient and effective of all of our plans." "That's unbelievable. Does he have the best equipment?" "No. In fact, he's got some of the oldest." "Well, there's got to be something wrong there. Tell me, does he lose a lot of his people? Does he have a lot of turnover?" "Come to think of it, he does have a lot of turnover." "Uh-huh," the young man said, thinking he was on to something. "What happens to those when they leave 1 minute manager?" "We give them their own operation. After 2 years with him, they say, who needs a manager? He's our best trainer of people. Whenever we have an opening and need a good manager, we bring him. He always has somebody who's ready." Amazed, the young man thanked Miss Jones for her time, but on this occasion he got a different response. "I was glad I could fit you in today. The rest of my week is really busy. I wish I knew what the 1 minute manager's secret were. I have been meaning to go over there and see him, but I just haven't had time. Smiling, the young man said, I'll give you those secrets as a gift when I find them out myself, just like he's giving them to me. That would be a precious present, Miss Jones said with a smile. She looked around her cluttered office and said, I could use whatever help I can get. The young man left Miss Jones' office and walked out into the street, shaking his head. The 1 minute manager was absolutely fascinating to him. That night, the young man had a very restless sleep. He found himself excited about the next day, about learning the third secret of becoming a 1 minute manager. The next morning, he arrived at Miss Brown's office at the stroke of 9. A very smartly dressed woman in her late 50s greeted him. He got the usual, he's quite a character, isn't he? But by now the young man was getting to the point where he could sincerely say, yes, he is. Did he tell you about 1 minute manager? That's all I had to share about. It's not true, is it? That's better. You would better believe it is. I hardly ever see him. You mean you don't have much contact with him? Especially very little, except of course when I do something wrong. Shocked, the young man said, you mean the only time you see 1 minute manager is when you do something wrong? Yes, but almost. But I thought a key motto around here was catching people doing something right. It is, but you have to know something about me. What? I have been working here for quite a few years. I know this operation inside and out. As a result, the 1 minute manager doesn't have to spend much time with me. And if any, on goal setting. In fact, I usually write out my own goals and send them over to him. If each goal on a separate sheet of paper, indeed it is no longer than 250 words, and each one takes me or a 1 minute manager only a minute to read. Another thing about me that's important is that I just love my work. As a result, I do most of my own 1 minute phrasings. In fact, I believe if you are not for yourself, who is? A friend of mine told me a motto I always remember. If you don't blow your own horn, someone else will use it as a spit-on. The young man smiled. He liked her sense of humor. Does the manager ever praise you? Sometimes he does, but he doesn't have to do it very often because I beat him to the punch. Answered Miss Brown. When I do something especially good, I might even ask the 1 minute manager for a praising. How would you ever have enough to do that? It's easy, just like making a bet where I either use or break even. If he gives me a praising, I win. But if he doesn't, then I break even. I didn't have it before I asked. The young man smiled as he took the note of Miss Brown's philosophy and then continued. You said he spends time with you when you do something wrong. What do you mean? If I make a significant mistake, that's when I invariably get a 1 minute reprimand. A what? 1 minute reprimand. That's the third secret to becoming a 1 minute manager. How does it work? It's simple. I thought you would say that. If you have been doing a job for some time and you know how to do it well, and you make a mistake, 1 minute manager is quick to respond. What does he do? As soon as he has learned about the mistake, he comes to me first. He confirms the fact, then he might put his hand on my shoulder or maybe just come around to my side of the desk. Doesn't that bother you? Of course it does, because you know what's coming, especially since he doesn't have a smile on his face. He looks me straight in the eye and tells me precisely what I did wrong. Then he shares with me how he feels about it. He's angry, annoyed, frustrated, or whatever he's feeling. How long does that take? Only about 30 seconds, but sometimes it's forever to me. The visitor couldn't help but remember how he himself felt when the 1 minute manager told him in no uncertain terms how annoyed he was with his indecision. And then what happens? He lets what he said sink in with a few seconds of silence, and does it sink in? Then what? He looks me squarely in the eye and lets me know how competent he thinks I usually am. He makes sure I understand the only reason he is angry with me is that he has so much respect for me. He says he knows this is so unlike me. He says how much he looks forward to seeing me some other time, as long as I understand that it does not welcome that same mistake again. I must make you think twice. it must make you think twice. It certainly does. The young man knew that Miss Brown was talking about. He was taking notes now as fast as he could. He sensed that it wasn't going to take this woman long to cover several important points. First of all, he usually gives me the reprimand as soon as I've done something wrong. Second, since he specifies exactly what I did wrong, I put it on top of things, and then I'm not going to get away with the sloppiness. Third, since he doesn't attack me as a person, only my behavior, it is easier for me not to become defensive. I didn't try to rationalize every mistake by fixing blame on him or something else. I know he's being fair. And fourth, he's consistent. How does that mean he will reprimand you for doing something wrong, even if things are going well for him elsewhere? Yes. Does the whole process really take only a minute? Usually, and when it's over, it's over. A 1 minute reprimand doesn't last long, but I can guarantee you, you don't forget it, and you don't usually make the same mistake twice. I think I know what you're talking about. I'm afraid I asked him. You didn't ask him to repeat him. I did. Then you know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a 1 minute reprimand.